I'd like to call this meeting to order of the City of Laredo Historic District Landmark Board. It's December 9th, 2021, and our meeting should begin at 12 noon, and it's now 12:05. I'd like to call the roll of members. Rebecca Sepulveda present. Wayne Nance.
Here.
Justin Allen Hunsnercher. Stanley Green.
Here.
Robert D. Gonzalez.
Here.
Priscilla Iglesias.
Here.
Maria Elena Morales.
She has to be excused.
Cristina Davila Villarreal.
Present.
Mark Gonzalez.
Present.
We have a quorum. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4, approval of minutes. Item A, regular meeting of August 12th, 2021. I'm hoping all the members received their packet and were able to review the minutes. I'd like to entertain a motion, unless you would like to have a motion that addresses all 3 minutes, or would you like to take them individually? We have minutes for the meeting of August 12th, 2021, October 14, 2021, for which there was no quorum, and November 10th, 2021, for which there was no quorum. Is there a motion to approve?
I'm having trouble with my screen. If I can step on something like a presentation.
Oh, you might flip the switch.
You have to minimize, like get out of there.
My mouse is small.
It's because I can't like do anything.
I think it's because you're watching the PowerPoint. There's a switch by your A and B. They all have the same problem.
Is it, and you're looking to look at the display, right, of the computer?
Dang, there's a lot of cords.
I was on that screen, but I somehow got out of it.
Have you, I'm at toggle. So what are we trying to look for, the
I'm
packet?
okay here.
You're
Yeah,
fine?
I'm fine here.
Okay,
Yeah.
so are you okay?
On A though, right?
I think she needs the
I-
packet.
I don't have
Oh
access
yeah,
to
mine
the
doesn't have
packet.
Okay, let's see what, well, if it's,
Oh, I see. A.
Are you going to the,
There we go.
to
Okay, great.
that's a redistricting committee.
Oh,
Yeah, I got it.
Go to there and go to, yeah,
Meetings?
meetings. Go to, Historic?
Agendas
yeah.
and minutes. Is that historic
like I
one?
can't.
Mhm.
I tried escaping also here,
Pushed
but
everything.
Click on the full packet.
okay, great.
Okay.
Very much.
So do
Okay.
you?
No,
see
This
permit?
happened like maybe 3 minutes I'm ago. finding it, no, November.
Go back. Go back to meetings, up here, here,
I just log on to my phone.
meetings,
now.
and then go to agendas and
Like
minutes,
seriously.
go to historic.
I think it was ready with mine. No, it's not. I don't know about that. No, mine's frozen.
Do you- Does he have to sit
No,
there?
I can honestly see it from my phone. For today.
Right there.
There you go.
Okay.
Are you okay?
thanks. Thank you.
I'm looking at it.
Are you okay?
Short.
Okay, so we're looking at the minutes that are
Do you have it?
it switched back to B.
just past the agenda,
Sorry.
It's
okay.
There.
on page
Do I have a
3.
password?
And then this one's green.
Right above it.
That one's even
The
worse.
word right above it?
Whenever they're coming. I'll second.
Right.
Yeah,
No one will ever know.
yeah.
I wouldn't have. Is that right? Okay, now we're ready.
Oops.
You know where to go?
Am I going here?
Yeah, either there or go to just there.
Just open it from the city's website.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, planning department and city See where we're planning?
How's your restaurant going? Good going. Oh, I don't have a restaurant. Well, I mean, you were proposing to do something.
Oh, yeah, I was telling Jason I wanted, I'm just looking right now for cheap quotes. and
Could it
stuff.
be
Yeah,
this?
with cheap parts.
Affordable.
Yeah, not cheap.
Then the
affordable.
storage?
Sorry, man, I'm just blowing. Economically feasible.
Thank you so much.
There you go.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry, guys, technical difficulties.
All right, are we all looking at minutes? Okay, so I'd like to entertain a motion,
I hope to approve.
and your motion includes August 12th, October 14, and November 10th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I recall.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next item is number 5, citizen comments. Do we have any?
No, ma'am.
No.
You have to sign.
Item 6, public hearing and consideration of the following. Public hearing and consideration of a motion to consider new site improvements to an existing historic property on the east 1/2 of Lot 4 and Lot 5, Block 122, located at 1802 Houston Street in the St. Peters Historic District. We have a short presentation. There we go. Okay.
What? No. Did y'all take out my,
No, it's in there, I'm just opening the door.
well, it should work.
Turn off this one.
I think it has to be, can you put it on, presentation view? Maybe it's that.
Is that right?
You know that little box at the bottom? There we go, let's see if it works. There we go. Okay. Technical difficulties all day today. Okay, let's get. So, the applicant is Jason Hinojosa and Amber Avis, and they are the owners. The property is described as 1802 Houston Street, which is located in an HR zone, which is historic residential office. And the applicant is proposing the installation of solar panels. It's on the roof of the existing structure. Letters sent were 23, and we received neither any for or against. You'll see that that is a location map. Again, 1802 Houston Street. This is an aerial. It looks like it's located at the intersection of Houston and Santa Clotilde. There's a front view of the structure. There's a side view of the structure. And this is the proposed location of the solar panels on the roof itself. You'll see that they're proposing to put solar panels on the front sort of flat porch area that faces Houston, and then on either side of the roof line on the rest of the roof. This is kind of a sort of a better image of that. All the little squares in yellow are the proposed solar panels. And at the bottom is Houston, just to give you a bit of orientation, and the side would be the side facing Santa Clotilde. Again, just another schematic of the solar panels and their placement on the
That's a
roof.
good question. What are we gonna do about solar panels? I mean, they're not the.
I think she's gonna elaborate.
Was there a question, sir?
Question? No.
No?
She'll finish her presentation.
Okay. And this is some details on the solar panels themselves and how they'll be affixed to the roof. Again, more schematics and specifications on how the panels will be affixed to the roof. More of that. And here's our recommendation. Staff recommends approval conditional to the panels not being visible from the ground. The proposed installation would not negatively impact the building's historic character. According to the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, installing a solar device on the historic building in a manner that does not damage historic roofing materials or negatively impact the building's historic character and is reversible is recommended. The proposed installation is located where the solar panels will not be visible. We want to be assured that the location of the solar panels will not be visible from the streets. We have spoken to the Texas Historical Commission, and they advise that visibility from the ground on the facades which do not face the street is acceptable. National Parks Service states that solar panels installed on a historic property in a location that cannot be seen from the ground will generally meet the Secretary of Interior standards. These are all the reasons for our conditional recommendation of approval. I think this is the same thing as stated by National Park Service. Installation that negatively impacts historic character of a property does not meet the standards. Solar collection devices should not alter simple roof lines as stated in the the City of Laredo's Historic Urban Guidelines. The proposed installation of the solar panels does not alter the simple roof lines of the building. So the proposed motion would be to either approve or deny the request of the application numbered HD 002-2022 for the proposed improvements located at 1802 Houston Street.
So we took some time to do some research at the national level, at the state level, to just see, this is a new thing, I guess you want to call it. And so we did a little bit of research to try to find out how other people are doing it. We did talk to the state today, and they were talking about case by case, also watching how it's presented on the building, trying to protect the front view of it. They make adjustments to the back that allow the panels to put on the back of the building more than the front. So they didn't really give us a solid answer to yes or no. They just said it's a case by case situation. I think you'll see with this one, the thing that helped us on this one was that there's some flat roof that they can put them on so they'll sit flat. But if you drive around the neighborhood, you have houses that the pitch starts immediately. And so to be putting panels on the front would really not work out. So once again, it's looking like it's a case by case situation, just see how we can accommodate. Houses that are in the middle of the block, well, they have some coverage for the back, so that helps, so that if they can't put it in the front, they can put it in the back. Corner houses have two sides to worry about, but once again, after the research we were doing, it really came back as a case by case situation for this committee to review. Yes, sir.
Question. When you say so the guideline is if you can't see it from when you're standing in front of the house?
That's a good question, because that's a question we asked here. Like when they say from the ground, I think that it should be within reason of the property lines of the property, because obviously if you back up 500 feet, that's a different view of the house and you can see things. So we want to stay within reason. So say the sidewalk of that house, to be able to see it. Because if not, you're going to have people saying, well, I can see it from 2 blocks away, and that'll just eliminate all solar panels, and we're trying to be accommodating with the understanding that this committee is the final say on it, but we just are trying to establish kind of how we want to see this, and the protection of the front view is priority, and then we can discuss how we'd like to see it on the backside.
And right now, the majority of the panels are in the front because it's south facing, and that's where you're getting the most light, is that correct? So how would that be affected if you moved them to the back or more to the sides of the home?
Those are the majority of the placement of the panels, so we impact the production.
And that's the
Madam
only
Ch-
flat area, so that's why
Mm-hmm.
I think they put the,
Madam Chair, if you want to open public hearing,
Yeah.
you can, and then we can ask Mr. Hinojosa to come up and he can answer your questions.
definitely, yes. So, we, do we need a motion to open the public hearing?
Just to announce it is a public hearing.
Okay, I think we did that.
Hearing no objections, then,
I think we had done that, so.
okay.
Good afternoon, council.
Promoted.
Just
Thanks,
promoted.
everybody.
Good afternoon, board.
Promoted us.
Jason Hinojosa for the record, a homeowner in the St. Peter's Historic District. I put a few photos together. This was not my best PowerPoint, but I just thought I'd put a few photos together for y'all just to show you what was in mind and what we're trying to do with our residents. As mentioned, we have an 11.04 kilowatt system planned on the rooftop. A majority of those are on the southern rooftop facing because of the best placement to put solar is in your south roof. There's about 16 panels up there, which is about half of the production. The other ones were to the west, and then the remaining few were to the east, which were facing the street of Santo Cliotelde. And a little bit of perspective, we've got those trees that sit out front. So I have a street view that I'll show you that blocks a lot of what you would see from the street, as we talked about, you know, how close is close when you're viewing the rooftop. This was from across the street from the LISD properties, and you can barely see the rooftop. The image on the left is where the majority of those would go. You can only see a little bit of, it used to be a little eave on the top and on the eastern side. I was gonna mention, there is already solar in the St. Peter's Historic District, as well as a historic property, which on the left one is the Holding Institute. If you're right here on Washington Street, you can see them right up front. And then they have a car parking in the back. The same decision was made, and the prior was that the south-facing roof is where you can harness the most solar, and so they put the remaining few up there. It was asked that they put them on either end, and because of the production changes, it went to the south roof.
Can you see those from the street?
Yes, you definitely can.
We approved those?
Because it was not a historic
Because
building.
that was not a historic building, the one that,
The
That-
historic
that
structure,
The actual
Yeah.
the actual panels are on.
panels are on, that's right.
right, this one.
I had a question, and pardon me if you already covered this, but my hearing has been seriously been going bad. But has the board taken up the possibility about those panels that, I think they're made by Elon Musk's company? And
The shingles?
they look like shingles. Is it practical to require those?
About double the amount in price, and I know, I don't know how well tested they are. They've been tested in the field through, studies, but they have not been placed on rooftops yet. And
They're
so
not in the
these
market.
are tried and true, and so I just want to go with what the technology has available right now, and install would, if given permission, would be next week. And so my ultimate goal is to reduce our energy consumption. It's a pretty large house, and we use a lot of energy consumption, and so my prior life, that's what I did, was energy efficiency and renewables. And so carrying that over to my house in a historic home, I just thought that would be the most, the best thing that I could do for any of the residents that are there currently, or the future ones that would be residing there. So just doing all the things that we can to source our energy sustainably. I understand this is a historic part of town, and, image is a big thing. I would say solar panels is by far one of our minimum things that we have to be concerned with, as opposed to other things about image. And the part that does convey to the street is, the side covered by trees. So let me just go back to that.
And just as a side note, I recently participated at the National Trust for Historic Preservation's annual conference, and they are behind making these buildings green and sustainable. It is part of evolving with the time and making sure that these buildings can go on into the future, and putting solar panels is a positive thing. We just need to ensure, like Mr. Navarro said, on a case-by-case basis, that it's not as visible on the street. There are some, if the roof was maybe a little bit different, I would say, well, yeah, your production's gonna be lost, but maybe we can hide some. So I know Holding, we had to put some in the parking lot in the back because it was too many in the front, and that was the, I guess the arrangement that we made there. But for Dr. Green that was asking, solar panels is something that is recommended with historic buildings now. It is moving forward with the time, and we're trying to make it more sustainable and more economical, to be easier to afford the electricity bills in those buildings. So yeah, it is. If you're asking me as a professional in the field, it is something that is recommended.
A key word that popped out to me was altering the roof line. So, are these solar panels? I've seen several. I'm not saying that this is in your case, but that are on flat surfaces, but they're angled. So, would these be flat so
Correct,
that
and
it
be flat
remain-
with
okay.
the roof line.
Okay.
Most of the time, they'll put those angled ones on the north side facing roof, so it can capture the south.
Okay.
And just for clarification, the panels facing the east, are they gonna be on the flat part of the roof or the angled part of the roof? Because those are the ones that we're really concerned with. If those could be moved to the flat side of the roof where they wouldn't be visible from the ground, or moved over to a portion of the roof that isn't visible from the street, we would wholeheartedly, unconditionally
You're
recommend.
talking
approval.
about the 4 panels?
Yeah, those facing Santa Clotilde.
So those, I asked in the design, because they've redesigned this multiple times, I asked them to put them on that side, and for distances purposes, they wanted them closest to be, you have to interconnect all your solar panels and go over to your meter. And they said just the distance was not ideal, it just reduces efficiencies through the transmission, and my meter sits on the western side, on this side, so it's additional cabling, and it was just not recommended by the solar company through their modeling efforts,
What was not recommended?
that I move them further.
You could move them to, there's like a flat overhang
Mhm.
that you wouldn't be able to move them there?
Correct, I asked them to in the design,
Or how about to the back of the building?
on any, which portion?
That's the north.
The north part of the building, if you just put those 4 panels, everything stays as is, and just move those 4 panels to the back so that it's not visible from the
So
street.
north-facing panels would require the racking.
Those won't be visible from the street though.
'Cause- Yeah, so if I go on the north, I would need that racking to go up, and these that are on the east on Santo Clio get covered up by these trees when you're coming down the street view. I should
Yeah.
have that if
I think that works.
I think so too.
So this energy production only produces about half of my production. I have to take this in phases. I don't have the fortunate ability to cover it all at once. My hope was to do a canopy. So I have these 2 parking canopies. This will come in another application, was to put it on top of the parking canopy area. And that was an idea. And then I have this back section. It's like a mid-floor. I thought about putting a canopy and putting the solar up there. So that way that outdoor area can be used and it'd be shaded. That'll come in the next one, but I chose the roof. It's the fastest, most convenient way for the initial phase, and then it lets me work with what other space I do have for the round 2.
I have a question in terms of insulation. Damage to the roof, how are you gonna insure against that?
So they drill into the studs, and that's the way they anchor all the different all the different solar systems. Aside from, this roof was replaced about 5 years ago when we purchased the property, 2.5, 3 years ago. The owner had replaced the shingles, and so the integrity of it, as my understanding, was fair, so he just went ahead and re-shingled it. This would make the roof, in my opinion, last longer when you're not having direct solar impact on it to
Yeah.
produce,
Absolutely.
move from the hail. Yes, you are drilling into the roof. My ultimate goal is to go back into my attic and insulate that, as
So,
mentioned.
but you can remove them, right?
Oh, yeah, they're removable.
So basically the historic preservation of the house is not affected, it's the look, right?
Correct. It's just this-
And for full disclosure, I lived across the street for 10 years and I did not know they had a flat part on the front of their house. I really,
couldn't see it.
I couldn't see it. So, it's hard to see. It's really tall. It's a really tall building.
Well, I would motion to go ahead and approve this request.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. Do we have to close the public hearing?
I think so.
You can close the public hearing, there's no one here to speak on it, so.
So,
Close public hearing
I'd
and
like to
entertain a motion.
combine the motion, perhaps, close the public hearing and,
It'll work.
And approve, okay.
Approve.
approve
Accept that
Accept
amendment.
that amendment, yes.
And Mr. Gonzalez?
I second that motion.
All right, so there's a motion and a second to close the public hearing and to grant approval to the request as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
So we'll be following this exhibit as what you all are approving?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Is that different from
Yeah,
what-
that's
That one's
different.
different.
from what was
That one had
presented?
4 in a square.
This is what he submitted in his application.
As mentioned, it's been redesigned multiple times. It will follow the engineering design. The other one was just an image on the initial phase. Once the engineers
So
draw-
what we approved is not what we're seeing here?
It's
Put this one on the overhead so they can get,
plan, it's number.
It's what's in your packet.
It's in our packet.
It's there.
What's in your packet? What he showed is a bit different.
Yeah, it's the same. Oh,
One was the initial
Yeah,
phase.
it's different from what I was seeing over here.
Oh, yeah, they went longwise instead of
Yeah.
north to south. This is Houston down here.
okay.
That's on the field. And I have the one tree there, and there's another one adjacent to it.
What we're talking about is the arrangement. There appears to be 3/3 on the Santa Clotilde side. And then in what we feel we approved, it was all in one row. I don't know how many units there were, because my screen is
It
now.
was 4,
And there's 6 on this one.
and there's 6.
Can you give us control of our system? Because I think it, I think it switched us off.
You have to press
I guess
the
we have to
button
do it
over here.
the
ourselves.
button, it'll go back to the screen.
Button E.
Got it. Thank you.
So I would say the engineering design this is what's submitted to the city, so that's what goes through building.
This side,
This was one of the initial drawings.
see, this one has the 3, and that one just has the 4.
But see, in our packet, we were looking at that overhead. What page is that on, Chris?
They're not, 16.
You can totally
I
still.
think the motion we made was based off
Yeah.
of page 20.
That was what I was looking at the whole time, so that's my motion. And
Okay.
if you, I don't know, if anyone has
So
objections.
that's
They-
page 20?
Yeah, it's page 20.
Okay.
Based on the one that has the 4 panels straight.
Mine, the motion's based off the 6.
The engineer.
The 6, okay, the yellow one that we have,
Yeah.
okay, that's fine, that's. just
That's
for
the
clarification.
one that you're trying to.
Correct. This is one that's submitted to the building department.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, there.
which is the button?
That's what we're doing. So,
Okay. So,
I guess, I mean, if you have a majority, I was looking at the wrong photo. I don't know if anybody else was, but,
yeah, I was under the same impression, but,
since we were talking about 4 panels on the east side, which, that's the reason
there
why I
are
was looking
actually
at.
6 panels.
And this, yeah, this one is 6,
So
so.
you approved it, your motion?
Yeah, but if you want, I don't know if you want to have some objections.
How did the rest of the members feel about there's?
I'll be honest, I was looking at the 4 panel, but I don't think it's visible from the street anyway, so I would have approved it anyway.
Okay. Dr. Green, are you comfortable with it?
Yeah, actually, my original question was the regular panels versus those fancy, I think are they Tesla?
Yes,
But anyway, it's not, apparently.
it's coming.
It's coming, but they're
Yes.
twice the price
Yeah,
right now.
maybe they'll be cheaper after we're gone.
Hopefully in a year or two.
Mr. Nance, do you have a
Anyway,
problem with
no, I
what
do
we've
not.
approved?
No, it's fine.
Okay, Ms. Davila, do you have a problem?
I'm fine with it.
Okay, Mr. Gonzalez, you're fine. Okay, we're good. We're all in agreement. Next item. Item 7.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
we've kept this on the agenda for this, the last we spoke about this, there was some feedback given that we were to receive. I think, Mr. Nance had some comments, for the ordinance that he wanted to bring the ordinance together. There was some follow-up that you wanted to see on this. We were proposing to get that in the form of an email so that we could work on it. So we're leaving this on here so that if there's any comments from the committee, that we can receive those comments. So we don't want to take this off because we don't want to forget about it. So we're leaving it here just so that we can receive your all's comments, if there are any comments related to the ordinance.
I believe if I recall what had happened was, several people on the board had expressed that the landmark board's recommendation, for the ordinance change had not, I guess, been accepted by, planning and zoning, and city council decided to go with staff's recommendation versus ours. What we were proposing was to actually be given an opportunity to revise some of the changes that were made without our recommendation. And maybe, I don't know if Mrs. Sepulveda would go present at planning and zoning just so we could have a voice, or somebody from the landmark board, but since we didn't do that, I know it was a public meeting and maybe we should have been there, but we weren't. And I believe where Mr. Nance came in was that he suggested that we come up with something, like for the people that had some sort of, changes that they wanted to make or recommendations, so that we can talk amongst us here. And I believe something was submitted, wasn't it?
Yes, I submitted a draft of changes, and I submitted a draft in the wording that we would need to add to support Mr. Nance's concern that there is a loophole there being created, that this commission will give staff approval to work on, to work directly with landowners, property owners. I don't know what happened to those drafts. I handed them out at a meeting. I brought them to staff, and they have not been shared with the other board members.
Okay.
I'm not allowed to share. I've been told that I'm not allowed to share.
Yes, we can share that information.
Yeah, I think that, please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Navarro, but Ms. Chairman did provide a recommended draft to us in the hard copy in the last meeting where we didn't have quorum. And I did look at it, and I started looking at it. However, since it's not presented on take it, put it on the agenda, that way we can formally talk about it.
In our
I think that, in our package, and that's the direction I think that the correct way, instead of just talking about it, hey, someone throws a volley out there, a draft, and then we'll edit it. The only comment, the main comment I made besides this point, and Ms. Sepulveda has taken it on herself to, hey, okay, these are the changes that we recommend. That's the great way to go. That way we can all provide feedback and approve it, and then you can move forward to city council. But the unfinished business I was talking about is the approved ordinance right now gives staff administrative authority to work directly with clients, but it didn't finish that. It didn't say under what conditions.
Right.
Under what conditions. And so I was tasking staff with coming up with those conditions where you think these are the situations where we should be given administrative approval, and then bring that to the board, and then that would be the second half of things that we would review to complete the ordinance, if you will. And let me know if you
Sure.
disagree.
No, I don't disagree. I'm perfectly fine with that. Madam Chair, would you like to sit with city management? Would you like to sit, or do you want to take this straight to council? Because, there's.
It has to go through planning and zoning first, right? They
And
have
us.
to.
But to get it through to city management so that they understand what we're trying to accomplish here, and then it goes through the process. But this would just be a sit down with them,
I
yes,
would
there
like
is a process.
to get consensus from this board and take that
Exactly.
to perhaps the city management and then the planning and zoning commission.
So we'll share your information, with everyone, and then, I guess we'll get feedback, or at least get everyone's approval if they're okay with it, or if they're not okay with it. And then we'll take that information based on your all's, decision. And then we'll speak to Madam Chair, and then we'll decide what's the next step, whether we go to city management or do we go to council?
And if you don't mind, if we're gonna go talk to the city management and go to council, why do it twice? Let's also take care of this administrative section that I would be tasking you all with coming up with to complete the ordinance.
Okay.
And then that way we have a complete revised ordinance. And, you know, does that make sense to everybody here? Yeah, why do it twice? Why go back twice?
I've submitted a draft of that wording as well. If you can include it, I think that would be
Okay.
beneficial.
I believe you emailed it to us, so we should have the copies. Yes, we can definitely do that. And I just want to, the reason talking to management is to get it on the agenda for city council, or get the city council to put it on the agenda, okay? I want to make sure we can get it on the agenda. And so it would probably take Madam Chair and a couple of others to sit down with them just to go over this, to make sure we can get it on the agenda.
This wouldn't fall under the planning department, so under your committee reports or
It
anything
would,
like
it
that?
would go to council, and council would direct us, and then we'd start the process to go to P and Z and go through the process, if they want to see the changes onto the ordinance.
So council would have to approve,
To get it on the agenda.
to get it on an agenda for planning and zoning?
Correct, it'd come back around and
Oh, that's
go.
interesting.
I never knew that.
Yeah. That's
Because if
interesting.
not,
Madam Chair, if you recall, I gave a presentation a couple of times, and it did go over who can initiate an ordinance amendment. And it's by a motion of council, it's their directive, staff, and the Planning and Zoning Commission. Those are the folks that initiate ordinance amendments.
Right, but planning and zoning can, right? So we can't communicate with planning and zoning commission and have them propose it on our behalf?
I mean,
For like
they have that authority, so if you want to go and speak with them, yes?
Yeah, I think
But
that's,
that's why I was
that's how
saying,
these changes were approved in the first place. I would like to, definitely put this on the next agenda with more information as we've discussed. And maybe a proposal for the steps that will be taken to get this through.
okay.
If, any of the commissioners want to meet with the city manager or city management staff, can we do that as well? Do we have to post a meeting, or can we invite?
Well, as long as it's not quorum, you know, we definitely can meet. And then that way, basically what we're doing with city management is just explaining
Why?
why the changes, you know, or what they missed in the first go around or something like that. And that way, they'll have an understanding of why, the logic behind this. And then that way, when it goes to council, staff knows what you're trying to do, and the city manager knows what you're trying to do, and that way everybody knows you're just not going up there and, you know, everybody's hearing this for the first time. I just think it'd be best to do something like that, so that it's smoother.
I think we heard when this was all presented to us that the process was being made more efficient, and that it was going to help the property owner. And, in my personal point of view, I feel like what it did was just eliminate a lot of the regulatory powers of this commission, and, allowing the public to discern for itself. And I think that is good if you have a lot of communication with the public about the right way to approach changes to your historic property, but we're not doing that either. So we're doing a disservice to our historic neighborhoods. So, I'm concerned that the efficiencies on the administrative side and trying to eliminate the paperwork and the staff time is also going to put a lot of our historic buildings at risk if we don't act quickly. We've already waited too long. We've been discussing this, what was it,
Since
April?
April.
And we're at the end of the year already. So, does this board want to meet
So the other
in
question is,
January or?
excuse me, Madam Chair, the other question is, and I'd have to review the video because it was the previous planner that presented this to
Yes,
the council.
yes.
To see if he did present everyone's argument and council decided on what they decided.
Yes,
He
Everybody's
gave
recommendation
our
was presented.
recommendation, he did,
Mhm.
but, in all fairness, he was against our recommendation
that's
also. And so the recommendation that went through to Planning and Zoning Council went through so quickly, I believe it took less, it was weeks. It went by so quickly, so when I say I feel like, we gave our recommendation to the best of our ability, and then, yes, I feel that maybe one of us should have been there, at least at planning and zoning. I'm not sure at what capacity I can go in and say I'm on the Landmark Board. I'm not sure if I have that authority. That's why I feel like it would have to be something that, okay, we approve something, it would have to be the chair to say, I'm here to speak on behalf of the Landmark Board, versus somebody that had a biased opinion on how this should go. So yes, it was presented, but I feel like the reason for our recommendation was not conveyed the way that somebody that felt adamantly about. That's my take
And
on it.
and our recommendation, quite honestly, was adding more conditions to an ordinance that it was trying to be streamlined. So we were adding doors and windows. Why are we doing that? Because we need to clarify further. By the action that was taken, we made the whole process more nebulous for the public. So we shouldn't be having to add specifics. We should just
Take off that permit,
simplify.
yeah.
Take off that language. In my point of view, the language that says that anything that does not require a building permit doesn't have to come here, that alone is the problem. And we should just strike that out, and if we do that, then we have no problem.
We take that out and we just do a list of administrative approvals, like Mr. Nass says, of this is everything that can just be done through staff instead of having to come through Landmark Board. At least there is some sort of qualified, knowledgeable person in historic preservation trying to safeguard some of these buildings. But if you kind of just lift up the veil there and say, well, anything that doesn't require a permit, well, that's a lot of things.
And
So.
you're asking the public to discern what does or doesn't require a building permit.
Yeah, and then as far, just if I can make a comment, as far as my position on that was, I would like for it to be more efficient. I think that for property owners that are on a time limit and on a budget, it takes a lot of money and time for them to come before come before our committee, present, and then we have questions. They have to come back another month, so they're waiting 2 to 3 months, depending on their situation, to get their projects approved. So for me, it was, yes, I would like to see some administrative leniency so that admin can do some basic, yes, you can do this. But there wasn't that verbiage of what they're allowed to do. So I think that was the missing part for me on that. I would like to have staff be able to get some of these things out quicker for the property owners. But also there is very important ones that we have to come before the board, and I do understand that. But it was just that list of things that gives administration that power to be able to do.
Right, and I think it's a matter of being efficient with administrative approvals, but not reckless by not requiring anything coming through us. Because the way that it is right now can be reckless, because you're just allowing people that are taking it upon themselves to say, well,
Well, I will say, in just so that you all know, in my short time here, I've had two phone calls of owners in the St. Peters district that were irate and were just telling us, I own this house, you can't tell me what to do, I'm gonna do what I want. And I guess they didn't even have anything coming to us. It was just the person picked up the phone and decided to call us and then hung up the phone. So I don't know if that's what most of the people in the district are thinking. I really don't know.
I think it's a lot of misinformation, and it's a lot of lack of community outreach, a lot of city investment into that area. So it's a combination of things.
Yeah.
So yes, if a neighborhood feels like the city is not backing them or supporting them in many different ways, then they're gonna have a negative opinion on what city ordinance should have them do. So again, I've brought this up many times. there is a historic preservation plan with a monetary amount that should be given to historic preservation and this board to help promote and to do some education, an educational campaign.
Yes.
Have funds available for facade improvements. I know that it went through community development and that kind of was only for business, but there's got to be incentives out there, and there's nothing to incentivize it. We have to keep these standards alive because we are a certified local government community. We have an obligation to it, so we have to do it. It's not something that, oh, we want to just because we believe in historic preservation. It is something that we have to do. So we have to find that common ground where we say we have to support these people in every aspect of giving them the education and giving them the support from the city. There is a zero monetary amount for historic preservation and these neighborhoods. So as long as the city doesn't put that money behind them, they're gonna be upset.
That was a big conversation that we had the first time was, where there's guidelines and restrictions, but there's no education behind that. So, you know, they're upset because they don't know that it has to be a certain color spectrum or, you know, things like that. So they're thinking they can do whatever they want, and then they get hit with, no, you can't. So that education portion, part of it is missing. And how do we connect the organizations that are already doing that type? But it all goes back to funding. If we can't get some funding behind it, as she mentioned, there's a plan, then it's going to continue to fail. I think we discussed trying to see what kind of educational things that we can put out there as well.
Workshops.
The biggest complaint I've gotten in the last 2 weeks is, why is it that the St. Peter's neighborhood isn't getting more infrastructure and quality of life initiatives in that neighborhood when they're building a $12 million Plaza Theater, although the funds don't come from the same place, and it's two very different things. This is the perception that people have. Why one thing yes, and the rest of the historic areas is a no, and that there is no conversation and there is no education on why those funds were allocated. They just see it black and white. You're not helping us, you're just helping this one project. And that's the complaint that I've gotten a lot. Well, where are we gonna park, and why not over here and why not over there? It's two different things, but you know, there's a lack of education in the community as far as historic preservation goes. So that is why you're getting those comments. I get them too, all the time, every day.
I recently also talked to the mayor about tax incentives. We have this board many years ago, probably when Dr. Green was originally on the board, passed a tax incentive program for homeowners in historic neighborhoods. I called the city tax office a couple of months back and asked them about it, and they didn't know anything about it. There's nothing written about it. The appraisal district is not familiar with it. So what is the
Was it passed at council?
Yes,
It
yes.
was
Was it the
passed.
neighborhood empowerment zone?
No,
It
this
was
was
never,
prior.
it
Oh.
was never revoked, was it, as far as I know?
I would like to know if it was revoked
I don't
when
think
the
so.
neighborhood empowerment zones were brought about.
Got my
Did it
attention.
replace? And if so, we need to know that, we need to be educated about it. But no, we used it, my husband and I used it in our property in St. Peters. And we also received tax benefits on the national level when we got our renovation, restoration certified. But we're not promoting that. But these are tax incentives that help people to
Sure.
accomplish what we want them to accomplish, to improve these buildings.
I think you were talking about that too, weren't you?
So I can send you some background on it, but I think staff needs to research and find out what happened to these tax
Yeah,
incentives.
for sure,
Can we
especially,
bring them
yeah.
back?
And I
So-
think, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
No.
the NEZ program is about to be reviewed. So if we can get.
It's being reviewed.
Yeah, so if we can be on that conversation that pertains to, I know 8, I don't know what other districts fall in the other historic ones, but that would be important too, so that we can see a value, like what that is really valuable to the property owners.
Definitely.
I'll make it a
Also-
point to add we'll send out an email whenever they have a meeting, so that whoever wants to attend can attend. But we have had, Councilwoman Cigarroa has had Julian Rafnowski, and I'm trying to think who the other person is. Dueñas, Mr. Dueñas Jr. in those meetings to discuss the NEZ. I'm not sure where they're going with it. No, they haven't finalized anything. It's just a review of the NEZ and then what we can do. We had a conference call with a lady from Fort Worth who is the director who handles the NEZs for that area. And she was able to give us some good information. So we're trying to use that with our economic development director to try to bring him into the fold so that we can try to figure out how to get it more monies, how to get more monies out there to the
I don't think
applicant.
it's really being utilized, at least the District 8 one, is not.
Yeah,
being
I think
utilized. I don't know about the
they
other.
told me that NEZs last year, we had 25 applications. So,
That's not a bad number.
I mean, you know,
Could be
depends on
more.
what. I asked the question, that's why I know, because I was.
And I think that's great for business but I would really like to find a way to help homeowners.
Yeah.
Sure.
That is, I think that is
Historic homeowners.
historic homeowners.
Got it.
That is where we need to be. I think economic development is great and I'm all for, the economy growing here. But these people are stewards of these buildings and they need the help. We can't ask them to do the community a service without the community being behind them and helping them.
But it does fall into economic development because if these properties are being maintained the way that they should be, the property values go up, and it's good for everyone all around. So while it's not directly, it still is part of the economic development web of how things go. So if they can get tax incentives, that is economic development, so that we can get more people into the vacant buildings, vacant houses that are in there, and so so that they're able to maintain it.
Would you like to have a meeting to discuss those kinds of programs and maybe include the economic development staff person?
I can ask Teclo Garcia, who's our economic development director, if he can do a presentation to show the different incentives that we have and trying to focus on
The
housing.
neighborhoods,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe
Right.
community development, Ms. Martinez.
There's also
Get her there.
housing rehab funds that can be used in our historic districts, so that would be good. Maybe a workshop of some kind?
Yeah, also the gentleman that does the grants for the city, isn't there like a position for that?
He's out of Teclo Garcia's office.
Oh, yeah,
He
it's
works out of that
Lozano,
office.
right?
He's there.
So that we can see like what grants we can be going for.
I'll ask them if they can attend the next meeting and do a presentation. I'll prep them now. And let them know that we're looking for monies for homeowners that have homes in the historic district and how we can kind of help out with some of that, so they can do some research and maybe come back to the table with something. We do have a grant writer. I mean, if we do find something, maybe the grant writer can write something up for us and put it out there. So
Yeah.
definitely, now that we have somebody.
Definitely, as a certified local government, we qualify for funds,
Absolutely.
grant
Absolutely.
funds.
Actually, this is the time to do it because we are looking in March to go to Washington. We also have our trip to Austin. So if we did it now, we could put that on the agenda as things that, when we go to Washington, we can ask, do the big ask and see what we can get from there.
So
But we have to be organized now, because if you don't, you're just going up there and winging it, and that's not gonna work for us.
We've had these same conversations many times,
Yeah.
right? And
That's my first time.
So how do we put these conversations into action?
I'd like to, the reason I would like to see if we could have meetings outside this committee meeting, because these are monthly, and sometimes we don't get quorum, so then it becomes 2 months. But if you had time, we can schedule meetings with the economic development director. I can call it, and we can have it in my office, and they can actually come in, we can sit down, we can brainstorm how to get through this, and we don't have to isolate it to just a meeting like this, even though we can do it here. I'm not saying that's the bad thing, but we can get the ball rolling a little faster, so they can do some homework, and then they can present things. Because what'll end up happening is they're gonna come, they're gonna present, you're gonna ask them to do something, then they're gonna have to go off and do their homework, so you're not gonna see them for a month, 2 months, But if we can have a meeting, maybe we can tell them to get it going, so that they could have something for the next meeting here, so it kind of moves the ball a little bit more. And, you know, we have a conference room that sits 15 people. I can call the community development director, the economic development director, the grant writer, put them all in the room, and then we can sit down and, you know, kind of give them what the agenda is, what we'd like to see, and see if we can't move that way.
So we just can't have quorum.
No, we could do it through this process,
Okay.
but my thing is that it's always a month.
Okay,
Always
like
a
special
month.
called meetings.
But we all
You can
agreed
call-
that we would could meet.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be our regular monthly meeting.
You could even assign a subcommittee and, you know, and create a subcommittee, and that subcommittee could be in charge of dealing with this and try to formulate it. I don't know, Ms. Villarreal, if you know, if you want to be on a subcommittee, we could,
Yeah.
you know, we can name three of you, I'm just throwing out a number, three of you to be on the subcommittee that can talk to them and say, okay, where can we go with this?
Does the appointment of a subcommittee have to be on the agenda as an action item?
No, it is not.
Okay, so does anyone here want to serve on a subcommittee to discuss some of these economic incentives?
I would.
I would.
Okay,
Okay.
so we have,
Mr. Gonzalez?
that's everyone.
Everyone.
We'll do four?
I
Four,
just wanted to
okay.
make a comment on just all the things as a homeowner. Jason Hinojosa for the record. Just in regards to all the issues, I mean, a lot of y'all heard a lot of the quarrels from the homeowners. Just one of the things that, you know, moving into the district, when you go there, you're not aware of the boundaries unless you've done your own homework and you want to know. And so establishing, like you said, the educational awareness of where you're at and what those boundaries contain and what we want it to look like, because what my neighbor wants and what I want might not be the same. But if we have it as a district and it's a unified voice, then for me, I'd rather respect that as opposed to somebody else, individual's opinion. And so what happens a lot of the time is that, you know, the NEZ program, we decided not to go with it because it takes so much time before you can even start anything, so we just decided to avoid it. And that's been the common theme across everybody. So what I'm trying to get at is just maybe creating like a toolkit, right, for the residents that are going in there and they want to do something. But that's to stimulate these houses that people want to move into, but we have to have a component that says, what do we do with the abandoned homes or abandoned structures? Because that impacts your neighborhood just as much as one that somebody's trying to repair and it might not be following the color scheme that somebody says, as opposed to the property that's abandoned that can cause illicit activity. So just having that two-part on the toolkit, this is what we do for those that are seeking to invest, and what do we do to get rid of blight? Because it can be a community, I've called 311 several times on properties that are not having any activity
Yeah.
other than illicit activity. So it's something that if we don't have that toolkit, I think as a homeowner, we'll feel like, oh, well, they're just telling me what to do because I live here. But what about the person that's not living here and just letting that house rot and it's in a, or structure with the entity, right? LISD, I've kind of made my comments to them. You know, you've got a beautiful property in front of a park that's highly visible. Nobody tells them anything, nobody does anything. But if I'm trying to do something in my house, then I get slapped on the wrist because I'm trying to do something.
Right.
So just kind of making sure that we're addressing both sides of it.
Definitely.
I know, preaching to the choir here, but put it on silent.
And there are templates at the national level that communities can use as far as how to determine what blight should be. You know, we've got to pick and choose our battles, and sometimes getting rid of a couple of eyesores will actually lift up the neighborhood a little bit. And so, yeah, there are recommendations as to how to go about doing that. So we're not reinventing the wheel.
Several years ago, when I served previously on this board, we were working on ordinance changes. And one of them was trying to find a way to attach something to all the addresses in the historic district so that when you buy a home in the historic district, you're automatically alerted. There's something in your closing documents that tells you, you are in a historic district, any changes, blah, blah, blah.
I was gonna ask that question, when you bought your home, did you have anything from the title company?
No.
No.
No, it has to come through, I think, the city, the appraisal district, and something, now that everything's digitized, it's easier to do, but to identify the addresses or the property IDs that are in the historic neighborhoods and create that.
And I guess just to add with that, the boundary, that was my ambiguity with how the St. Peter's boundary was drawn in, because it doesn't follow any certain pattern, and then the Society of Architect or Historical Architecture, I'm sure y'all know this one more than I do, shows a different boundary. And so that was kind of my thing, or what, if we're gonna be asking people to follow something, how is that boundary determined? Is it by historical points?
It was determined by a survey done by Ellen Beasley in the 80s, and she identified buildings that were contributing and that fit into a scope of a narrative for that district. So yeah, sometimes you'll see it go around.
Legal or-
It's because that one building fell into the scope. It was a
Oh, it matches
contributing.
what it was.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at the Society of Historic Architecture, and it shows St. Peter's has a different boundary than what we have. And it extends beyond Santa Maria, and so I know there's always been that Santa Maria divide, right? Residential, St. Peter's stays on that side, but St. Peter's shows that it goes all the way to Juarez, and it ends at Washington. So that was just my concern. If we're gonna be asking, are we following maybe the survey that was done, or is it gonna be off of what the architectural? It seems that obviously it's a survey.
It's what the city.
Well, it's
yeah.
what was adopted as the
The
ordinance that created the historic districts, and so that was negotiated too. I think that's where the boundaries were scaled back.
Okay, that makes sense. That was enough for my
But, you know, in discussion about boundaries, all of these things we should be discussing. For example, several years ago, this commission denied a business from coming into the St. Peter's neighborhood because if you allow one business in the neighborhood, a retail, say for example, then you're going to open the door like Pandora's box, right? And there'll be issues all over the neighborhood. Well, no, let's create zones within the neighborhood, let's say Santa Maria, that's very commercial already, and allow businesses there. But we're not even looking at those issues, but we should, because we want to promote economic incentives. We want people to come and take these properties and do something with them.
the approach of revival, right? To looking at it from
Right.
different aspects.
So we want them in areas where they're not gonna affect the quality of life of residences, but we need to look at the
That is,
map and make those decisions. How do we do that within the context of these meetings where we meet only when there's a application? We can't do that.
Yeah, I think
Those workshops.
doing the subcommittees and stuff like that would work.
Becky, what Jason said was about the boundaries. Would it be doable or advisable, we could put up maybe some very historic-looking street signs to say this is the, you know, on this corner ends the, you know, this historic district, and then we could also maybe throw in a little bit of history there on that sign, and you could actually create a kind of a historic atmosphere in this area by,
Sure.
and we've got enough people, and Dr. Thompson still has his wits about him. You know, that we've got the people that have the knowledge to do that.
We just need the money,
Yeah.
right? Because all that costs. And I think the
Yeah.
neighborhoods that have installed those signs and things like that have,
Councilwoman has discussed signage. Specific, I don't know the specifics of the sign, but she is looking on trying to do some entranceways and stuff to the historic district that could, so that when you're coming down the street and you reach a certain point, you know you're going into the St. Peter's Historic District. So that is being discussed.
oh,
I
good.
just don't know the details of it, but yes. I know she mentioned it. Okay.
Okay,
We'll schedule a meeting with the committee, and then we'll start putting some information together and see if we can't beefing up the agenda a little bit more.
so the committee is just our interest and our intent to attend these meetings, so can we have a show of hands? Who wants to be invited to those subcommittee meetings? All of us.
Well, we can't have quorum.
We can't. But
That's
you
why,
can
that's why the
invite us,
subcommittee,
and then
the
alert us.
subcommittee will represent you guys. So
But
that's
can
why
they
we're doing it.
do, like workshops?
We can do workshops, that's a whole, you know, if you wanna do a workshop here, we can do that, we can, you know, put it out there, the 72 hours in advance and that. So when you get together, that's a complication, that's why the subcommittee is nice, because then we're getting the four, we can actively do stuff, and then the
Would that
committee will
be,
report
like,
to the
the
chair.
subcommittee meeting be within the next couple of weeks? Because I'll be out of town for the rest of December. So that might, you know,
Yeah, I
take me.
would think New Year, right?
Yeah, the new
Okay.
year, probably.
January.
Okay.
And perhaps we can ask staff in the meantime if we can do a little research and ask them to bring information, background research on economic incentives that are existing.
I'll be talking to the
Okay.
departments to
Very
help us
good.
out with that, and then I'll get your information out to everybody.
Great. Very good. Thank you very much. So, next item, do we need to, okay, there is no public hearing for that, so we don't have to close it. Item number 8 is adjournment. Do I hear a motion?
Motion. To adjourn.
Motion and a
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.